In this lesson, we are going to understand what the SQL Alchemy models are and how we can create our first database using SQL Alchemy. So models is a way for SQL Alchemy to be able to understand what kind of database tables we are going to be creating. Now, a database model is going to be the actual record that's inside a database table. So, for example, we are going to have a table that is going to be called to-dos. In our to-dos application, and inside to-dos, each record is going to have an ID, a title, a description, a priority, and a complete column. So we'll make sure that each record in the database is an actual record, and we can use some kind of manipulation, whether that is our fast API application or we just want to be able to view it in the database. So what are we going to do? We're going to open a models.py file where we're going to create our first SQL Alchemy model, and we're going to create a to-dos table. So our table name is going to be the to-dos. We're going to create a class to-dos, which is initialized also from the connection of the database. We're going to also import the base from the database.py we have created in our previous lesson. So we're going to have the ID column. We are going to have a title. The ID is going to be a primary key. We're going to talk about, to recall, what are the primary keys and the foreign keys in the next lesson, where we're going to talk about the SQL queries. But this is the primary key column for the to-dos table, which means this is unique and is incremented by 1 every time. So we have the title, which is the column string, and we have the description, is also a column string. We have the priority, and we have complete. So you can now go and read all the details of what each table column mean. So for example, the priority column is an integer type and represents the priority level of the to-do item. So it could be used to indicate the importance in the urgency of the task, let's say. So in order to create our database for our API, what we are currently doing, we have created already our database.py file. We have already our models.py file. However, we don't have a database created yet, so we are going to have our main.py file as always, and we are going to copy paste everything written here inside the main.py file. It is going to be importing the models file, and the models.base, the metadata, we are going to create all the tables that are inside the models. So our next step is going to be creating our to-dos app. So I have already created a to-dos app basic folder where I have all the init.py file, where I have the database file.py file where I have the database connections. I'm going to use the URL to-dos.app. I'm going to create the engine, the local session. I have already my main.py, so where I'm copy pasted this code, where I have added the model. And of course, I have also the model.py file where I have the to-dos table created. So what we are going to do, we are going to execute just this main.py file, and the magic is going to happen, and we will be able to create our first database. So after I have all of this, I'm going to open a terminal. It's already open, so I'm inside my to-dos basic.app. So if I go and say there, I can see that here I have the main.py. So what I need to do, I need to go and say ubicorn main.app -- reload. So we'll see that everything worked well. So when I go to my folder, you can see that a new database.db file is created. This means that we have successfully created our first database using the SQL Alchemy. So this is the first step of creating a database, but now we need to go over and install the SQLite, because in order to be able to create some manipulations to insert data, we need to be able to grab something from the data using the endpoints. We need to install the SQLite, and from the next lesson I'm going to recall and remind you how to use the basic SQL queries. And then after you have installed SQLite, we can be able to go through and manipulate with some data, insert some data in our database. And in our final lesson, we are going to have a full working project where we have our database. Our endpoints are going to grab something from the database, filter something from the database. So here I'm also giving you a link on how to install SQLite on Windows or Mac, whatever you have. This is a very good link. you can go and install on your Windows. Since I myself also have Windows COM, that is why I'm inserting this link, but it's quite the same to install also on Mac computer. So make sure to install SQLite 3 after you have successfully installed SQLite 3. You should be able to type SQLite 3 here, and it should open a terminal like this, where you have to connect it to transistor in-memory database. So SQLite here is, you can also start typing some command like schema or something else. So if you have created everything correctly, everything should work fine. So as I have already created a to-dos app.db, what I can do, for example, to make sure that SQLite 3 is successfully installed, if I go say SQLite 3 to-dos app.db, it will automatically open me this thing. And now if I just type .schema, I can see that I've already created the table to-dos, the ID, the title, description, priority, complete, and the ID is the primary key. So after you have successfully installed this, please make sure that you can use the SQLite 3, these basic commands, and in the last lesson we'll start to manipulating with this data using the SQLite commands.